Every day, aspiring musicians dream of getting out of their garages and taking their songs on the road for the world to hear. But not everyone's successful at making a living as a gigging musician. There's a right way and a wrong way to navigate the music business, and whether you're looking to book your first gig or plotting an extensive world tour, this show will help you demystify the live music industry by providing first-hand insights from artists and professionals who are doing it at the highest levels. Hey there, I'm Tony Neely, and this is the Book Your Band podcast. All right, welcome to this episode of the Book Your Band podcast. I am your host, Tony Neely, and joining us today is the wonderful and talented Michaela D. Jordan, musician from the CTs and also the founder of Golden Poppy Music. So thanks for joining us all the way from Los Angeles, California.
You are so welcome. I'm happy to do it.
So tell us a little bit about Golden Poppy. What is Golden Poppy? What's your origin stories and what do you do?
So Golden Poppy is an artist-focused alternative to a traditional management and label structure. So Golden Poppy is really one of a kind. What we do is we exist to provide artists any kind of support that they may need that a typical management company or label would provide them, but we provide it at an hourly rate so that the artist can maintain complete control of their career. This came about because I've been in the music industry for 17 years and I started as a musician and I saw the way that musicians were really taken advantage of by labels and how they had grown to mistrust management companies. And I wanted to change that. And I felt that being a musician myself gave me a unique insight into it. So through working for various record labels and just within the industry, I decided to start this company. I came up through Rope-a-Dope out of Philadelphia and
Great label.
Just awesome people. And I saw how much they deeply respected their artists. And I saw how much control and, decision-making they gave their artists. And I was like, you know what, this is the way to do it. And I remember running it by Fabian Brown, who runs Rope-a-Dope with Louis Marks. And I remember running this idea by him. I'm like, does this sound crazy? I want to charge an hourly rate and basically provide management and a record label to artists when they don't want to sign their rights away and they want to maintain their masters and, not give away a percentage. And he was like, that's a great idea. And as soon as I heard it from a mentor, I was like, okay, this is a good idea. But yeah, that's how Golden Poppy came to be. And that's really what we do. We focus on artist empowerment and having their back as they navigate the industry.
So you said that you kind of exist to be the antithesis of the traditional artist management relationship. A lot of my audience may not be familiar with what that structure traditionally looks like. So can you tell me what that structure normally looks like and why you felt that you needed to go against the grain and do it a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Golden Poppy exists as the antithesis to both a label structure and a management structure. So a typical management structure basically looks like an artist goes out and is doing their thing and busting their ass and funding things themselves, and then they give a manager a percentage of everything they make. So they give a manager 15 to 20% typically of everything they make. And also they're locked into a contract with that manager for a certain amount of time. So if you feel the manager isn't doing anything, or if you feel the manager isn't providing you what you need as an artist, you are stuck with that manager for 5 years. And a lot of managers will also have something called a sunset clause, which means that even after you leave the manager, if you choose not to renew, that manager over the next year or two will, basically over the first 6 months, they'll continue to get 15%, then 10%, then 5%, then 0%. I saw people who I was very close to become victim to that really predatory kind of model. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, that's not really fair. An artist should be able to choose how much they want to put toward management, because to me, management is a service. So I was basically thinking to myself, all right, well, being a musician, when you're a musician, you are a business. Your music is a business. And when you're hiring a manager, you're hiring someone to manage your business for you. And if you ran a store and you hired a manager for your store, the manager of that store wouldn't be like, well, I own part of this store now, and you have to pay me whatever you're making on this store. No, a manager's going to come in and be like, okay, I'm going to work this many hours and you're going to pay me for this many hours. And then we can both go our separate ways at any time. And that's how Golden Poppy works. I felt that that was, as a musician, something that I would want, because my artists are able to choose how many hours a week I work for them, and they're able to choose how many hours they want to put in to their management. And because of the natural ebb and flow of artistry, they're able to, you know, every week decide how many hours they can put in to what they need. And then on the label end of things, how a record label will work, because Golden Poppy can also function as a record label if need be. A record label typically handles all promotion, all distribution, marketing, whatever. And what they usually do is they do this in exchange for ownership of, or partial ownership of, an artist's music. I think the most popular example of it right now is what Taylor Swift is going through with Scooter Braun. When she signed with his management company, which is, it's weird for a management company to do this. This is typically something a label does. Yep. But she signed her publishing rights to him, which means 50%, not only 50% of all revenue from the songs go to him, but when somebody
go into his pocket.
Yeah, right into his pocket. But it's so he doesn't have to do anything. And anytime Teardrops on My Guitar plays, he gets paid, and he does nothing. He didn't write the song. He didn't create it. He didn't record it. Nothing. It was just the exchange for him managing her. And like I said, that's typically something a label does. But because he owns the publishing, he also gets to decide how all the songs are used. And that's typically what happens with a label, is they will own publishing and they'll require ownership of publishing for a song. So then they decide how the song gets to be used. So if there's a political candidate that you don't agree with that, you know, wants to pay money to use this song, you are, first of all, you're only getting 50% of what they pay. And the label gets to choose whether or not the song gets used. You have no say. So when Golden Poppy's acting as a record label, we're still working at that hourly rate, and we're handling the distribution, and we're handling everything, and we're not taking a percentage. The artist keeps 100% of their royalties. They retain all of their ownership. And even if we are connecting an artist with a sync licensing deal through an outside company, or even if we are connecting an artist with any outside company, we are advocating for them so that they retain the rights to all of their music all the time.
So what would be the benefit of hiring a company like Golden Poppy as compared to using something like DistroKid or CD Baby to handle your distribution?
I think that's actually a really good question, because we do provide distribution. We have a lot of times a DIY company such as DistroKid or CD Baby. When you're an artist signing up for that, what happens is you're able to like put your music up and it gets out there. But what you're not able to do, because you don't get label privileges from those companies, is you really aren't able to utilize their marketing drivers as effectively as possible. And what a marketing driver is it's all of the extra information that you're providing a distributor, and you're telling them, here's how we're marketing this song. Here's everything that we're putting into the song. Here's everything that makes this song marketable. And they bring that to Spotify, and Spotify says, that's worthwhile to put on our playlist. Oh, that fits this playlist because they're working with this artist on this song, et cetera, et cetera. So what Golden Poppy does... go ahead.
I keep thinking of the term gatekeeper. It kind of opens the door to getting to some of those playlists and through some other avenues that random Jim Bob in his, basement uploading to DistroKid or CD Baby wouldn't have access to.
Correct. Because Golden Poppy was able to enter this kind of stage as a... Oh, hello. Sorry, my cat just jumped on my lap. So because we were...
That's okay. I've done recordings before. My 4-year-old came running in.
Not amazing. So can we not rub on my microphones? But anyway, so what Golden Poppy does is, because we have access to providing these marketing drivers, and because we have the skill set to create these marketing drivers, we're able to deliver that along with just the song or the music video. I'm able to have direct contact with the distribution and with, all of these companies and say, hi, I'm the manager. Here's how we're marketing this song. And, I'm able to create the one sheet and create all of these different things. So, yeah, that's basically it. It's a really distribution can be like a really weird and complex thing. And I'm sure we could do like a whole podcast just on that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You brought up that you had some firsthand experiences, some friends who were taking advantage of some predatory practices. And, there's always, as long as there's been labels and managers, there's always been that kind of stereotype of the skeezy, scheming, manager that's out to just screw over the artists and stuff. But it sounds like you're trying to go a different path and really build more trust and transparency with your artists. So tell us more about how you're doing that.
Yeah, that's actually
outside of just the pay by the hour model. Like, how are you overcoming that stereotype of the skeezy manager?
That's actually a really great question. Because I work a lot with artists who have been burned by other managers, and I feel that there's a couple things that I do. First off, I listen to the artist's needs and I ask them what they need. And I show them exactly what I'm doing. I'm very transparent. When I show them my invoice, everything is broken down to like the half hour. And I'm like, here's exactly how much time I put into something. Here's the results of the time that I put into that. And they can see everything. They have access to all of their documents at all times. I'm never in a meeting without them. I'm never doing any negotiations without them CC'd. I also allowed them to make final decision. I will advise them and I will tell them what my opinion is on something that they should do. And I will negotiate a deal for them. But at the end of the day, they have to say yes or it doesn't go through. I don't make decisions. I don't make the decisions for them and then go to them and say, this is what you're doing this week. I think another thing that helps me foster this trust between them is that I'm a musician. A lot of times a manager will be somebody like coming out of MI with a degree and being like, well, I know how the music industry works because, I took these classes.
This piece of paper says I do.
Yeah, this expensive piece of paper says that I know how the music industry works. I'm like, okay, but have you ever loaded an amp out of a club at 3 a.m.? Have you ever actually like gone and busted your ass and played a show? Because if you don't know what that's like, then how are you going to navigate these careers? How are you going to tell these artists how to run their careers if you don't truly understand what they're doing? And I think the fact that my artists, they can come and see me play the Viper Room. They can come and see me play these shows. They can go listen to my music on Spotify. They're like, oh, they actually really know what they're doing. Like they actually know what I'm doing as an artist, and, they can see, they're able to see what I've done and how I'm navigating my own career. And I think as well, too, is I am a stickler for getting everything in writing, and I'm a stickler for agreements and contracts. And I have a Golden Poppy agreement I send to everybody. And in it lays out exactly what I'm going to provide for them. It says that, one, they can leave at any time. They can stop services whenever they want. There's no minimum on how much they have to work with me. They can come. I have some artists that I don't see them for 6 months. And then they'll be like, hey, I'm ready to release something. And then they'll just come in. I'll work with them for a couple weeks through a release cycle. And then they'll go on their merry way. But they come back because they're happy. And I also have an NDA in my agreement as well, which says like, I can't do anything that doesn't benefit you. I can't share any of your information that you don't want me to share. So I have all of these barriers of trust laid out for these artists, and just frankly, open communication. Like I'm a stickler for open communication. They can ask me anything. They can, discuss anything with me, and, I'm never going to get offended.
Which is nice because, like you said, you are a musician, so you know kind of what the life is like.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not.
So a lot of what you've talked about so far with what Golden Poppy does and how you were trying to break the mold and build on trust and transparency, we've kind of been talking more about the production distribution side, but the primary focus of this is based around the live music industry. So what does that look like as far as the services that you provide? How are you breaking the mold when it comes to working with talent buyers to, do you work as a stage manager as well, like, or a tour manager? What are you doing on the live music side?
Yeah, Golden Poppy's live music side has obviously changed a lot because of COVID. I started my company in January of 2020. Little did I know.
Yeah.
So I've worked as a tour manager, I've worked as a stage manager, I've worked as a booker, depending on what an artist needs. I've also hired outside services for that. I've hired like people I trust. Like right now I'm working with an artist where we have this really stellar team currently booking her around the South and Nashville because like I don't have roots there. So I'm, kind of allowing somebody that I trust to come into the team. But I think the way that I am kind of changing things with that is I'm not allowing my artists to settle. And I'm not telling my artists, oh, just go play this gig and just deal with this shitty booker and just deal with this shitty manager because, oh, it's good for your career.
Exposure.
Yeah.
It's good for exposure.
Yeah. Which like, there's merit to like playing a good gig when you know somebody's going to be there. Like it's fine. There's merit to networking. But it's like, there are bookers I won't work with in Los Angeles because they have proven themselves to not be respectful to bands and they have, treated artists poorly. So me and any artist I work with will never work with these people. And there's definitely an idea, especially in Los Angeles, that like, oh, well, you got to dance with the devil sometimes. Oh, you just got to deal with these people. And I'm like, no, screw that. We're not doing that. You don't need to deal with somebody who treats you that way. And I allow my artists to be very selective of the gigs that they play. And, I don't know, I can't curse on this program. So I don't let them take anything lying down. There we go. That's how I can say that. I don't let them take anything lying down. And, advocacy.
If you are working with a young emerging artist, somebody that maybe they're not even working with Golden Poppy, but you're like, hey, I just want to give you some life advice. What would you tell them as far as looking out for predatory practices? Like, what are the signs that this is a predatory deal? This is a predatory offer on the live side to run.
On the live side? If they're
we can go both, but like
we'll start there.
I'm just thinking of so many of the pay to plays when it's one thing to pay to play to be, on one of the main, venues for South by Southwest or something. Is there a thing to be at, Chi-Chi's for their Tuesday brunch or whatever?
Yeah.
So
what I would
like, how do they recognize those?
What I would look out for is, I would look out for, first of all, I'd check out the booker and I'd see if they've been promoting all of the music that they've been booking. First of all, check out their Instagram. If they're telling you that you need to sell a certain number of tickets and that if you don't sell that number of tickets, you need to pay them for those tickets, or they're making you pay for those tickets up front, and then you have to sell them and make the money back. That's pay to play with fancier words. Don't do that. I think if a booker seems to have forgotten that without artists, they don't have a job, don't work with them. If they are pushy and they are like, when can you play? When can you play? When can you play? And if they are very aggressive about your ticket sales, don't do that. If anybody can promise you that they will make you a star, never trust anybody that says that. If anybody says, and that also encompasses people that are like, I can get you 1 million streams on Spotify. I can get you to play this venue. Don't listen to those people. If you are a brand new artist and you have like 500 monthly listeners on Spotify and someone's telling you that they are going to book you at the Grand Ole Opry or the Hollywood Bowl, they're not. They're not. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not. And if you don't know, call Golden Poppy. We'll tell you.
Mm.
We will tell you if it's real.
So it seems like a lot of your story is, so I'm a research nerd. I have my PhD.
Yeah, I love that you researched me.
Uh,
I'm like so happy.
But a lot of what you're talking about reminds me of a seminal paper on power dynamics, French and Raven, 1959, where they talk about there's an issue with power dynamics in society that us and them has a tendency to turn into us versus them. And that almost sounds like what your experience has been with the relationship between artists and executives. And so can you tell me a little bit about how you're trying to bridge that gap between artists and industry professionals?
Oh, you have unlocked my special interest. Yeah. I feel that somewhere along the way, major labels, large booking agencies, and large management companies somehow forgot that they need musicians to have jobs. And it blows my mind. And I feel that what happened is this comes from the way that the music industry was structured back in the 50s and 60s, where, everybody was just desperate to be heard. And the only way you could be heard was through these companies. Well, that power dynamic has completely changed because the pipeline used to be you go play a gig, the A&R person from the label comes to the gig, the A&R person says, oh, you're pretty good. We'll bring you into the studio. You go into the studio, the A&R person in the label tells you, okay, we like what you did in this club, but here's all the ways you're going to change it. And here's what you're going to record now. And then the record that you make there, which is kind of what you had going, gets sold to all of these radio stations and TV stations. And then your music gets put out. And then you get in and then you start to have a career. Well, now an artist can just put their music out. They can record it in their bedroom and they can put out music. So what's happening is an artist has to hustle by themselves and they have to build their social media following. They have to record something great. They need to push that music. They need to make their own visualizers. They need to do everything themselves that a label was doing. And they need to show that they have value for a label to invest in. Because what record labels have become, they're not artist builders anymore. They're investment companies. And somehow people have forgotten that. So I'm rambling. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're speaking with passion.
Yeah,
so
I
keep
totally
going.
am. I'm very passionate about this because that's what Golden Poppy is. Golden Poppy is the knitting of these two sides of the industry that just have been at war with one another for so long. Because the executives don't think that the artists know what they're doing. And the artists don't think the executives know what they're doing. And the reality is we all just love music. And we all just need to listen and respect each other. We all just need to realize that there is no one-upping one another, that if we work together and if we work in collaboration with one another and executives and artists learn to kind of, combine their powers, that they can
Captain and music.
Basically, Wonder Twins. And, they'll explode and they'll get so much bigger than, what this weird game they're playing. Because it's weird. Like, you'll be in these rooms and you'll hear these people talking and you'll be like, you over there, you executives are playing a game that you don't think the artists know you're playing. And the artists over here are playing a game that they don't think the executives know they're playing. Everybody knows each other's playing a game. And I'm like, why don't you all just stop playing games? Why don't you all just be really honest with what you want? Like, I've never understood that. I've never understood falsehood. So yeah, basically.
What do you perceive as the games that are being played on each side?
That's a great question. I feel that executives and large companies, especially large labels, feel that they almost have to bamboozle artists, as if the resources for the artists to look up all of their techniques aren't out there, as if there's not books upon books. I worked for a label once where the executive of the label was, having me work with this band. And this band was incredible. And every release cycle, they would do a rebrand and it looked fantastic. And the marketing was just so high level. It was so on point. It was all done by the bass player of this band. And she was brilliant. And the executive that I worked under told me, oh, so-and-so thinks she knows what she's doing when it comes to marketing, but she really doesn't. So they were going to have a marketing meeting without her and tell her what to do with her band. And it's almost like willful ignorance of what an artist is capable of, because to an executive, if they acknowledge the amount of know-how and power an artist actually had, they would start to feel useless. And they would basically feel like some of their power was taken away if they began acknowledging how much power and how much know-how these artists truly have. And the game that artists play is almost like playing dumb sometimes. They'll kind of pretend they don't really know how to do this stuff because they'll kind of want a label to come in and give them money and help them. Or they will try to present themselves as something that they're not because they'll want to be signed. That will always blow up in your face, young musicians listening to this podcast. Please, please, never try to be someone that you're not, or try to present your music as something it is not because you think it will get you a record deal or a management deal. It will not work. But that's, in a nutshell, what it is.
You know, a lot of people I know, they go to, well, I want to sign a deal because there's more money there. And obviously we know you might get some kind of front, but unless you're selling lots of records, you're going to be paying that front back. But to me, the thought has always been it gives an air of legitimacy.
Correct.
And I think that's the power that labels still hold over a lot of artists, is because there are so many gatekeepers to getting into the bigger venues, to getting access to the better agents, to getting more resources for on the front end for merch and stuff like that. That, yeah, you can DIY it, but I still think that even though it's 2024, there's still this idea that I have to sign with a label to be viewed as a legitimate artist.
That's correct.
And obviously there's people coming around now who are disrupting that. I mean, you know, love his message, hate his message, whatever. Oliver Anthony is a great example of that, who's basically coming in and flipping tables on the traditional executive artist relationship.
Yeah, there's a band out here called Dirty Honey, and they're really...
I know Dirty Honey.
Yeah. I met them at their show at the Troubadour, and they are honestly like the greatest guys. But yeah, they've won Grammys, they've won like all these awards, and they're still unsigned. They're unsigned. Yeah. They just have like a killer team around them. And yeah, I've had artists come and work with me because they're like, well, I know how to do all this, but I'm getting into these situations where I need a manager in a room with me, or I'm not going to be taken seriously. Like there's artists I work with that like I'm just hired to send their emails for them and to be in the Zoom calls with them because they need to show that they have representation. And I think what it is this almost, it's to create an air of exclusivity around the artist. Like, oh, they're not a person, they're an idea. And you have to wait until somebody allows you into the room with the idea and the money, you know? And I feel that you're right. A lot of people will want to sign with labels because of that, because they'll want that kind of legitimacy and backing. And let's be real, it looks good. It looks real good if you're like, oh, I'm signed to Warner. Oh, I'm signed to Universal. You know, it opens doors for you, but it comes at a cost. Like you said, they give you that loan. Just in advances, it's a loan. They give you that loan. And then nowadays, you know, you're not, even if you get 1 million streams on Spotify, that's not like selling 1 million CDs anymore.
$2. 1 million streams, you get $2.
1 million streams. Congratulations. Here's $5 after you pay everybody on your team.
Yeah. And I loved Snoop's video that went viral where he talked about on Spotify. He got 1 billion streams last year and he made $45,000 off of it. He made less. I think the median national income right now is $54K. He was like, I had 1 billion streams online and I made less than the national median income.
Yeah. Yeah. you're not making money off streams anymore. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And that's why the label structure is kind of like, on its death rattle a little bit right now is because, that was pre-streaming what people relied on, and it kind of almost worked. It kind of worked, at great cost, but, people were getting paid at the end of the day. But nowadays it's like music is free. Nowadays, you're paying back your label with your merch sales and your ticket sales, but then they're funding that tour. So then you get deeper in the hole with them. So it's just this crazy thing. And then you're tied to that label forever and you have to do what that label says forever.
So you just used the term death rattle that you're starting to, you kind of perceive maybe in the future, we're going to see less and less influence from labels. But what about on the live music side, as far as the industry professionals and their relationship between artists? My perception is that side's exploding. Some of the folks I've talked to in the industry said they're busier now post-COVID than they've ever been for their businesses, their entire careers.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing on the LA scene or working with your artists as far as how the relationships between artists and live music industry professionals has changed in the post-COVID world?
I think as opposed to labels who are slowly dying, I think it's a really great time for event companies and talent agencies. Because you're right. Right now, booking, you have to book 6 months in advance right now. It used to be all right, well, we'll book a show for next month. No, it's not like that. Because after COVID, not only was it people itching to go out and these companies wanting to come back, artists want to play. Oh my God. The year and a half I couldn't play live music during COVID, oh my God. It was horrible. I'm I need this for my soul. So I feel that what's happening now is there's a shift. When we first opened back up, all you saw was really predatory bookers because the bookers and the venues were oh my God, we're dying. Please save us musicians. Please sell tickets. Please, please, please. But again, they played a game. They were desperate, but they played the game of don't you want to play music? Don't you miss playing music? Well, you better pay us for these tickets if you miss playing music. When in reality, those ticket sales were please, we need to pay our bartenders. They're so mad at us right now. But I think what happened was artists who hadn't played shows in a while, it was weird. It was we got really empowered and we started to get really wise. And now what's happening is we saw through that facade and we're oh, you need us, don't you? You need us to stay afloat. So now in the live music industry, there's becoming more respect and there's becoming more of a melding together. And just the event coordinators and the event companies that I work with out here, like I said, the aggressive predatory bookers, it's the supply and demand chain has shifted. There's a lot of bookers looking for bands right now to pay back all these, bailouts and whatever that the venues had to have. So I feel that, artists are well, okay, you're mean, so I'm not going to work with you. I'm going to go to this other guy who's also really desperate to book bands and he's nicer, so I'm going to go work with him. But I do find that within booking, there seems to be at this point a little more respect between artists and bookers. There wasn't for a while there, but there is now. Yeah, I think that about sums it up.
So I do want to throw out just hopefully as some encouragement to you and anybody else watching. There are still some phenomenal talent buyers out there, booking agents out there who remembers why they're doing it. On a previous episode, I spoke with Jonathan Roberts, who is the VP of Global Touring for Premier Productions. They're doing stadium shows primarily. They'll do some mid-cap clubs, but primarily they're focusing on arena shows. And he said that his kind of pep talk to his team before every event is to remind them that the artists are why they get to do what they do.
I love
The
that.
fans are why they get to do what they do. And they always need to keep that as their central focus.
I feel like there's
So,
so many more artists, so many more like booking agents and booking companies that are having that attitude now. You know, it's so refreshing at this point. And I don't know, I feel like what happened was everybody just became really hungry for live music when they couldn't have it. And
yeah.
it like we're still feeling the effects of that as people just realize how much they missed that environment, you know?
Yeah, I've always been a live music junkie.
Mm.
My favorite band is Fish, so I travel around the country seeing them. My oldest son, I have two boys with musicians' names. My baby, 7-month-old, his name is Towns, named
Oh,
after Justin Towns, Earl and Towns Van Zandt. But my 4-year-old boy, his name is Avett, named after the Americana
the
band, the
Avett
Avett
Brothers?
Brothers.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
love the Avets, so much so that my firstborn was named after him. But during COVID, you're talking about that idea of just fans being hungry for music. The Avets were one of the first big bands that were scheduling like drive-in shows.
Mm.
And then they actually rented out the the farm where Bonnaroo Music Festival is held. And we went to some of the shows there. It was crazy because they had like guardrails set up like 8-10 feet apart, and you were in like this little like guardrail cubicle, and it was just incredible seeing people just lined up and everyone spaced out. But it was like, holy crap, we're actually getting to see live music.
That's so cool.
And yeah, it was a bizarre and wonderful experience to be able to see one of your favorite bands who was like, okay, we have to find a way. Obviously, they still had bills to pay. They had to keep food on the table, but also they have such a rabid fan base. They're like, we have to find inventive ways to feed this itch
Yeah.
that our fans have, because we need out of our houses to see some live music.
Yeah, the live streams just didn't do it, man. They just weren't the same. Like, I even tried playing a couple of them, and I was just like,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah.
I play with an Americana band here in Chattanooga called the Foothills, and we did some live streams, and they were fun, but they just felt sterile.
Yeah.
Like
There's no
some
energetic exchange. Yeah.
exactly. So our lead singer, we'd finish the song. He was like, "Okay, I guess we're just going to play another song for you
Yeah,
now."
you're waiting
Uh,
for the clap, and you're waiting for the response,
yeah.
and you're like,
But I do think because of that period, the quality of recordings and stuff that were being put to YouTube and artists just putting themselves out there, I feel like the quality got better by necessity. It had to get better.
Yeah.
Because if you're putting up something recorded on a camera from 1988 with, a Radio Shack microphone or whatever, nobody was going to watch it. So I feel like the overall quality of streaming live performances improved.
I agree. They went up phenomenally, and like honestly, because of that, the quality of like concert videos now are crazy.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
it's nuts.
Yeah, so again, my favorite band, Fish, they 4K live stream their shows. So like New Year's, 4K
Rad.
live stream from Madison Square Garden, able to watch it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something that is a phenomenon I'm seeing here in Chattanooga as well. Chattanooga is 240,000 person town. Uh, Most of our clubs are in the 300 to 400 range. We've got a couple mid-cap rooms around 12 to 1,400 before you get up into the theaters. But everything from, pubs and like breweries all the way up to the mid-cap rooms, like you said, they're booked 5 to 6 months out right now.
Yep.
So what are you doing, understanding the oversaturation of the live performance market right now? What are you at Golden Poppy doing to help get your artists' feet indoors?
I'm thinking ahead.
Say more about that.
I am planning, because basically you always want to play off of the back of a release. You always want to, as you are booking a show, say, oh, I'm supporting this release that's coming out. So all of my artists have like a 6-month to 1-year plan ahead of them. And I'm like, okay, so it's January now. all right, we're prepping to release a single in March because it takes 6 to 8 weeks to properly launch anything, really. 6 to 8 weeks for a single, probably 3 to 4 months for an album. So as we are prepping that, and as we're prepping for the release, that's when you start booking the shows. You start booking those shows 3, 4, 5, 6 months in advance. You know, you don't, and you kind of predict, okay, where's the artist going to be? And what are we going to be working on in 3 months? And then you have it all set up. And eventually what happens is you start rolling into that. And it's like, all right, well, the artist is playing now a show that we booked 4 months ago. And then it just keeps rolling into it. But you're booked out. The artist itself should also be booked out 3 to 4 months in advance.
So how are you determining venues and markets to hit at that point if you're starting to book 3 to 4 months before releases are coming out? Especially if it's a first release artist.
If it's a first release artist and it is like their very first release, do you mean somebody who has like no music out?
Yeah. So say somebody, they had a video that got some traction online. They put out a couple singles on Spotify. It's and you know, you're getting ready to do an album release here a couple months. You've got to start booking out their tour.
Great.
You don't really have that data to know where their listenership's coming from. So how are you determining markets?
Well, you do, because if you have a couple songs out on Spotify already and you have a video that's already doing well online, what you have is you have your Instagram and TikTok numbers. I'm assuming those are the videos that do well. And then you have your Spotify numbers and you have your Spotify analytics. And your analytics will tell you where your music is hitting and what you're...
Are you using their native analytics or are you using a third-party service to get your data?
I'm using their native analytics because Spotify I'm looking at who on Spotify is listening to their music where. You know, I'm not using another party. I'm getting it right from the source. And I'm like, okay, well, your biggest cities are San Diego, Los Angeles, and Sacramento. So you have listeners in all of those. And I could see that this video is doing really well. And your Instagram followers are in San Diego, LA, and Vegas. So those are the cities that we're going to be hitting. And you can see if you don't have a lot of data on your music, go by your social media following. And make sure that your social media following is large enough. Like booking a tour should be one of the last things you're doing as an artist. You should be focusing on your hometown and you should be focusing on where you originate. And I mean, the example you gave is somebody who's a little more established. Like if I'm talking to somebody who's starting from like zero, who is like,
let's go with that. Somebody starting from
zero. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get into open mics and you're going to build a community around you of other musicians. That's before anything. If you're green and you have you've never played and you've never released anything and you are just starting out and you're just writing songs and you haven't recorded anything, you just started your band Instagram, go to open mics. First and foremost.
I'm praising right there because I proselytize young artists. Get out and get your reps in open mics.
All the young artists want to do. They just want to like, okay, well, can I just put up a song on TikTok and then go viral and then do that? It's like, no. Play real shows, play for real people, and play with other musicians. Because I can't tell you the amount of times I have seen someone who had a bedroom video that they just played guitar on TikTok go viral, but then they can't play live. They're not good live and they can't play with other musicians and they don't know how to work a crowd. And it's like, that needs to come first. Because if you know how to perform in front of people, you'll know how to perform in front of a camera. It doesn't work backwards. So if you're just starting, start there. And then when you build relationships with those musicians at those open mics, you ask them if they need someone to open for them when they are playing a show. And then they'll let you open and you play acoustic so you don't have to pay other musicians. You know, you either play acoustic or you find a friend or barter with somebody who is willing to play with you. I do a lot of bartering with the musicians I play with, you know, especially because I can't provide management services. And from there, then you either, if you can produce yourself, amazing. If not, go and hire a producer and lay down 1 or 2 songs. Figure out visualizers for those songs. Get those out. And then once those start to gain traction, you start to get more followers, then you can maybe start reaching out to venues yourself. But there's an order of operations here. And a lot of people just want to jump right into, oh, I just want to headline a club. And I'm like, okay, but you need to do about 6 months worth of work before you can even think about doing that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of clubs look at numbers.
So at what point in an emergent artist's career do you think they need to start reaching out to somebody like Golden Poppy for management, for representation, for your booking services? Like, are there certain metrics that you encourage an artist to get to at first, or are you willing to come on from day one as a hired mentor?
I'm always willing to come on day one and start an artist from scratch. I've done that before. You know, especially if an artist has some sort of budget, that's super helpful. If they have a budget for me and a good PR person, amazing.
Now, when you say budget for somebody that's new, how much are you talking?
Couple grand.
Okay.
Couple grand.
And with that couple grand, what can they expect from that?
From a couple grand, here's what's going to happen. They're going to see these big shiny PR companies that cost $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And they're going to be like, wow, that's so cool. They'll place me in Rolling Stone. That's so rad. That is not what you want to do. Even if you have the money, don't do that. You want to go for smaller, mid-level PR companies who are going to pitch you to more niche publications, but publications with really engaged followings. Everybody reads Rolling Stone. Everybody's going to go on their website. But you know what happens? They're going to cover your premiere the same day that they're covering, like, I don't know, a Dua Lipa premiere. And your premiere is just going to go on their website. They're not going to promote it on their Instagram. They're not going to put it out anywhere. You'll just get to share a link with your friends and family that said, hey, I was in Rolling Stone, which is cool. And it's valuable to put on your press kit, but it's not going to get you anything. It's not going to get you any type of real followers off of that article because Rolling Stone's not going to share you. They're going to be like, thanks. You gave us more content. This person's going to
thank you for the money.
Thank you for the money. This person's going to share us and promote us, but we don't need to promote them because we're Rolling Stone. What you do want is you want smaller local blogs and you want your college radio and you want these people who are so stoked about your music that they're sharing to their Instagram, they're sharing to their stories. And it's like, okay, they have 12,000 followers. 2,000 out of those 12,000 followers are going to click on your link. Because those are people checking that blog every day. Those are people subscribed to the newsletter. Because those are people that, that blog has worked to build connections with. So what you're going to do is instead of taking $3,000 or $4,000 and going to the large publication and the large PR company, which you don't need until you're a huge artist, you're going to take $1,000 and you're going to go to this smaller PR company and you're going to build from the ground up. Especially if it's somebody local to you. Like every city has a scene. I came from a town of 5,000 people and there was a music scene there. So like find your scene. And then what you do is you hire Golden Poppy or somebody like me, somebody who can make sure your songs are registered properly. Make sure that you have the proper marketing drivers going to your distributor. Make sure that your lyrics are up on Music's Match. Make sure that all of these little ducks are in a row so that your music can be used in the way it needs to be used. Because a lot of times if an artist is just putting something up on a DistroKid or a CD Baby, they're just like, okay, here's the song, here's the cover art, we're done. You need the metadata, you need the lyrics, you need marketing, you need to tell them how you're managing this song. You need a canvas for Spotify. Like there's so much that goes around a song. And what a lot of artists I notice don't do is they don't register their songs with their PRO. And a PRO is a performance rights organization, for those of you who don't know. And it's very important to do that as well.
So are you talking like ASCAP, BMI, EMI,
Correct.
CSAC kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. BMI's free. So
in the words of my brother-in-law, if it's free, I'll take 3.
Yeah.
So like you perked up when you said that. Why, for a young emerging artist, why is it so important that they register their song in that way?
Because one, it helps more easily track your songs, and it helps to, as you're going about placing your songs, what it will do is it'll register you as a writer. It'll give you something called an IPI number. And that number is searchable, and it makes sure that all of your songs are registered and trackable, so that when you go, say you want to submit to join the Recording Academy, or you want to join the Recording Academy because you want to submit to the Grammys. Those of you who don't know, that the Recording Academy is the people who put on the Grammys. You need to show them, hi, I'm a real musician. If your songs aren't registered and you don't have an IPI and there's no record besides like songs you put up on DistroKid that have your name attached to it, and there's no paper trail, they're like, okay, but what have you done? So it's like going through those registration processes is really important. And also, above all else, it copyrights your work. A lot of people think you have to go through like the government copyright office to make sure that your work is copyrighted, and you don't need to do that. That's great if you're like a large artist and you're releasing a record like Ariana Grande. She needs to go through a copyright office because somebody's going to take the phrase "thank you next" and use it for something, and she'll have to take it to court. But what you want to do as an artist is, if you play an acoustic version of your song on Instagram and then somebody uses that in their song and steals your lyrics, if you have that BMI and you have that performance rights organization and you have your work registered through them, there's not even a court case. You just say, this is my song, and they have to pay you. As opposed to you being like, oh, well, I sang it on Instagram first. Well, I put it on my Spotify first. It's like, well, did you take it from them or did they take it from you? And it's whoever registered the song first. So it's super. I literally cannot express this enough. Register your music. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for letting me rant.
No, it's just making me smile because it makes me think when I was a kid, bands I was in, we'd always do what we called the poor man's copyright. Because, I mean, we were teenagers.
Mail it to yourself.
Money. Exactly. Mail it to yourself. Make sure it's post-dated and just never open it. So
that's what my dad told me to do when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So we recently moved houses, and I was going through an old box and actually found an envelope from when I was like 13 or 14 years old that was still sealed.
Oh my God. That's so cute.
I opened it. Like, I was like, at this point, nobody's going to take,
At this point, we have the internet.
Yeah. Nobody's going to steal, contemporary Christian songs written by 12-year-olds in the 90s.
Watch out, Creation Fest.
Cornerstone's coming back. So I do have one more question kind of in that theme of like licensing publication stuff.
Lay it on me.
Then we'll get back over to the live performance, kind of wrap up our talk. On your website and in your profile and stuff, you really push a lot about, hey, one of the things we can provide is help with sync licensing. And I'm old school. What is sync licensing, and why should somebody care about sync licensing, and what does it benefit?
Sync licensing is the hottest new thing.
Hey, lay it on me.
But no, everybody's trying to get sync licensing right now because it's one of the most surefire ways to get paid. What it is it's anytime you hear music used in video games, commercials, TV, whatever, that's a sync license. And a sync licensing company catalogs all your music, takes all your music. Again, a reason you need to register with BMI. They need all that data. That's tweet data. It's very admin intensive to do, but basically you register everything and you give them, here's the lyrics, here's the BPM, here's the key, here's the keywords, everything that you need. Here's all of the metadata, the ISRCs, my IPIs, all the writers, all the splits. And you hand it to a sync company and you wait. And you wait. And you wait. And then hopefully someday somebody comes along and says, I want that song, I'll give you $10,000. And that is kind of what everybody is doing right now because we're realizing we're not making a lot of money off of live music anymore. So everyone's trying to get a sync hit because, you know, we all hear from a friend of a friend of a friend, oh, well, they got paid $30,000 to put a song in a movie, you know? Oh, I wrote that song in 15 minutes and I got 50 grand for it. So it's kind of the new like luck of the draw thing that but everyone's trying to get into it. And it is very lucrative.
So essentially it's just media-based royalties, right?
So, sort of. You collect royalties off of it anyway. But what somebody does is they pay a sync licensing fee. They're basically licensing the publication. This is another reason why, as an artist, hang on to your publishing right because you will only get half of that sync licensing if somebody else has your publishing rights. If you're an artist, you get it all. A lot of sync licensing companies will take a commission, basically. Make sure that when you are signing a sync agreement, they're not taking ownership or a percentage of your publishing rights. They're taking a sync administration fee. So they are just taking usually a sync company will take 20 to 50% of whatever they get you.
Gotcha.
So, you know, you get 10, they get 10, or, you know, you get 10, they get 5 or something. And yeah, that's what sync licensing is. And a lot of people want to do it. Obviously, it's a huge amount of exposure. I know, like I mentioned, I'm in the Recording Academy. So EA Games just had us in for like a talk and just had all the Recording Academy people in for a talk because they're like, give us your songs for our video games. We're sick of paying AC/DC $30,000. We can pay you $5. You know? But your song gets to be in Madden and it's awesome, you know? Like, it's really...
It could be the next Tony Hawk soundtrack.
It could be the next Tony Hawk soundtrack. Exactly. Like you could sing your song in Simlish and be on The Sims. It's great.
Yeah. So I have a buddy named Lang Freeman. Shout out to Lang if you're listening. He is in a phenomenal band called Sounds Under Radio. Just one of the most ridiculous live shows. They would play small cap clubs and make it feel like an arena show. Incredible.
I love bands like that.
But they called their touring van the Spider Van because they got a song in one of the Spider-Man soundtracks. And
amazing.
So they had a little Spider-Man on, and they had stuff on like Vampire Diaries, stuff like that. But the Spider Van paid for by the Spider-Man movie.
Amazing.
So thanks for clearing that up because it's a term I've been seeing thrown around. I saw you really pushing it on your website and talking about it in some other interviews. And so I appreciate you giving me some insights. I normally have a decent pulse on what's going on, and I had no idea.
Sync is like the new thing right now. It used to be something that handled exclusively by labels, but because so many artists are going labelless, they're starting to learn what it is. Sure. And there's a lot of different sync licensing companies out there and a lot of people who do a lot of different things. So again, we could do a podcast on it.
Oh yeah. Hey, I would definitely love to have you back again. You're fun to talk to.
Thank you. I'd love to be back.
So as we start rounding out, let's start projecting. I want to know, obviously, when I was a kid coming up playing live music and getting gigs, the world's changing. You know, Bob Dylan, the times they are changing. What do you see coming down the pipeline as the future for live music, for live performance, for the live music industry? Especially, what are things you think artists should know about the future of the live music industry?
This is going to be a very hot take.
Hey, bring on the hot takes. Okay. We'll take it.
I think what we're going to see is we're seeing a huge surge, and this is just on performance alone. We're seeing a huge surgence of people playing with tracks. And we're seeing a huge surgence of bands really heavily relying on tracks. And, you know, you'll see 4 incredibly talented musicians on stage all playing karaoke to something. I have seen multiple times bands have to stop a set because their tracks stopped working and they can't play together. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a resurgence of bands who don't play with tracks because people are going to think, wow, they can actually just play together. And it's going to become almost a novelty to not play with tracks, because it used to be a novelty to play with tracks. Now, musicians that can fill a room with just the sound of their instruments and their voices is going to be a big deal. And those bands are going to stand up head and shoulders above the rest. I think it's really important for musicians to be able to play without them. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see. I think we're also going to see a resurgence of small show. People see local music because stadium shows are getting insanely expensive, and we're coming into another recession. People can't really afford to go see huge bands anymore. Even the nosebleeds, I think a good example is like when I was young, I would go to Warped Tour every year and I would pay $35 and I'd go to Warped Tour and I'd see all these bands. And then now we have When We Were Young Fest, which is basically Warped Tour Part 2, and it's $400.
Yeah.
Crazy. Same band.
Oh, trust me, I'm a fish head who's been trying to get tickets to fish at the Sphere in Vegas. So
yeah,
I understand. Yeah.
So I think we're also going to see a resurgence of small clubs and live bands and like era of exclusivity. Like So Far Sounds is coming up right now. They are a company that does like secret shows.
Okay.
So it's like your favorite artist. You buy a ticket, limited amount. You don't know where the show is until the day of. And then you show up and you're like in a hotel lobby and it's like these amazing bands playing. Like Billie Eilish did one, So I think we're going to see a lot of that too. I think we're going to see things tailored down and become very authentic and very unique.
Got you. So recapping there, go back to analog, get away from the digital, go back to analog. Be prepared to play smaller cap venues because more people wanting entertainment with less resources or fewer resources. So smaller rooms. But for those larger artists, expect more exclusivity. So the secret shows and limited 50, 75, 100 cap tickets for the larger artists. That's kind of your projections for the future.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Sirius XM and Pandora do this thing called the Small Stages series, which is really rad. And they basically they release 1,000 tickets and first come, first serve, and you just get it. And then you go see these crazy artists. And then it's all paid for by sponsorships. So it's interesting. I saw John Mayer that way. I ended up one of the best moments of my life. I literally ended up on the gate front row, looking him in the eyes as he soloed for Gravity. And it was the greatest musical moment of my life. And I was I never would have been able to afford this, but I got in free because I got into this Small Stages series. And the way they paid for it was, there were booths everywhere of Dunkin' Donuts or whoever or Eargasm or all these sponsors that knew all these people would be flooding into here. Yeah. And they all want swag.
Side note, shout out to Eargasm.
I love them.
If you're into live music, you go to lots of shows. If you're listening to podcasts, you like live music, buy you some Eargasms. They're fantastic. I'm not a paid sponsor.
I was going to say, are you a sponsor? Because I love them.
No, but if Eargasm, if you want to give me money, I'll take it. I use your products. They are just a fantastic earplug that actually just drops the dB without actually muffling the sound. There's a great pass-through filter on them. I love them. I don't leave home. Can
I plug Eargasm too? Can we do that? Because I literally,
absolutely.
They just reposted me on Instagram and I totally geeked out. I was so excited because I had one pair of Eargasms for 4 years. 4 years. And they are $30. And I have my little case and I carry them on my keys.
Keep it on the keys.
Yeah, I keep them on my keys. And they're so great. They have that little diaphragm in them. And I will tell you right now, they're the only earplugs I can wear on stage. And they make music sound better. I kid you not. It
just makes everything in the room just quieter.
Yes. It basically filters out all the high decibel so that you can actually hear the singer and what they're singing. And oh my God, cannot recommend them enough. Anyway.
Yeah. So this is the first product push I've ever done on Book Your Band podcast.
Sponsor
and it's
us.
completely unpaid. Yes, Eargasms, we love you. Even if you don't want to give us money, we'll keep giving you our money.
Yeah.
All right. Michaela, well, thank you so much for taking time. Tell us where we can connect with you online. Tell us where we can get your music, where if somebody wants to work with Golden Poppy, which hopefully, as knowledgeable as you are, they'll want to, where can we find you?
Oh my God, you can find me. Well, first of all, you can find me and everything I do on my Instagram at Michaela D 567. Attached to that, you will also find at Golden Poppy Music, and you will also find at the CTs. That's my music. TheSeaTease. I did not realize how much I'd have to spell that to people when that became my band name. But yeah, you can also find the CTs, Golden Poppy, and Michaela D. Jordan on our overlord Google. But you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever, goldenpoppymusic.com, etc., etc., etc. I am Googleable. Find me.
Awesome. All right, last question before we roll out, and I'll be sure to link up all of that in the show notes.
Please.
I finish every episode with the same question. It's all about live music. Tell me the best or most influential concert you've ever been to.
Ooh. Best or most influential concert. It was that John Mayer show. It was so...
Just having that moment.
Oh, God, that moment. And just, I think, because I'm a guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also he has just influenced me so deeply as a musician and as a writer. And the fact that he's like, I'm going to write pop songs so I make a ton of money, and then I'm just going to tour with a blues trio with two of the best players in the world. Like, so
Pino.
Oh, Pino Palladino.
I'm a bassist. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh my God. So yeah, that was so impactful because he kept it very small and he was just so good. He was just so, and just being able to watch him play that closely was just mind-blowing to me. And yeah, it was that. I think I got in my car and cried after. It was like really beautiful.
That's where you know it's a good show. If you get in your car and cry.
Yeah, I just like tears. It was amazing.
Well, Michaela, speaking of amazing, thank you so much for what you're doing just to support live music, to support artists, and try to just bring some integrity to what can be a predatory industry.
Thank
so
you.
You're awesome, and thank you for your time.
Of course, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And check out Golden Poppy artists. Check out Four Feather. Check out Shiva Elliott. check out everybody.
Yeah, we'll be sure to link those up as well. Thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Book Your Band podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I would sincerely appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and share the show with some of your friends. To stay informed on upcoming episodes, be sure to sign up for the Book Your Band mailing list and also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. All those links are available at www.bookyourbandpodcast.com.